In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Sup. So I'm going to do the first answer to my evaluation questions. It's raining outside, so I don't know why I'm wearing these. So the conventions of horror trailers that we did actually conform to were as follows. Fast cuts was an obvious one. Lots of horror trailers have fast cuts towards the very end of the trailer, and so obviously we used that within our trailer. As when we were researching other ones, it was very conventional to see that. For example, Carrie, Insidious, Insidious 2, The Conjuring, Cabin in the Woods, etc, etc. It goes on. There's a long list of trailers that have used fast cuts at the end of them. Obviously, a part of the trailer that is so big is the music. You have to have some kind of atmospheric suspense music running throughout, at the beginning and at the end, especially with those fast cuts, as I mentioned earlier. There has to be something that builds up, some kind of music that builds up. If you don't have any music in your trailer, then no one's going to get scared. There's going to be no atmosphere. The audience aren't going to care about what you're trying to portray in the narrative. They just won't care at all. You need to have some kind of music to connect to the audience, because music, as we all know, connects to the audience very, very well. And if you've got some kind of creepy music, you're going to creep out your audience. That is just a fact of life. Another convention is titles. You don't get these in every single kind of trailer ever, but you get them mainly in horrors, where it's like, he knows where you live, he's coming to get you, he's there in the night, he's back on Halloween. Yeah, so titles are a very big thing in trailers. As you could see from R1, we had kind of when your past comes back to haunt you and kind of things like that running throughout our trailer. Yes, to build up the story, to keep the audience in the know, understanding what's gonna be the plot of the story of the film. Did that make any sense? I'm not sure. Two other things that you get at the beginning of trailers, almost every single trailer for every single genre has this. They have that weird green screen thing at the beginning, and then they have a production company that it's made by. Usually they will have that. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. Before we had decided on which production company to choose for our trailer, we had to look up all the different production companies and what films they had actually made. And in the end, we just went with Paramount because it had made some supernatural horror films, and we thought, that's good enough. That's good enough for us. We like Paramount. They're good, innit? Sound effects was a big thing in our trailer, especially as in every other trailer. There are usually sound effects because it's easier to add them in later rather than having to film with those happening in the background. We mainly use them for our titles, which is what usually is conventionally used for horror trailers. They'll use kind of loud bangs and things on their titles to kind of emphasize what the titles are saying. So this is R1. Yeah, that was what it was like. Cool. Within our trailer you could see lots of different types of settings, including isolated settings and domestic settings. You can see this with other trailers, for example, Insidious, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho. Lots of different horror films have different settings, and they're either domestic or isolated. And so we had the isolated setting, which was the woods, and then we had the domestic setting, which was the convent. So the Enigma code, we had the eyes at the end of the film, so it was kind of like, who did that belong to? So we wanted to keep that kind of element of mystery in. Obviously, because we needed to make the trailer as simple as possible, we didn't have that much of mystery, but that was the kind of last minute, like, who was that? What was that? What's happening? I don't know what's going on. Why is there this thing with weird eyes? So that was how we used the Enigma code. Even though our narrative was a supernatural one, we decided to keep in the aspect of blood and that kind of convention of horror, because that's a big part of horror. Blood is. As soon as someone thinks about horror, they think about blood and people dying, and that's a really big thing. So we decided that we had to keep that in somewhere. So we had it on the wall, and we also had it coming out from underneath the bathroom door. Did someone say blood? We stuck to the conventions of a horror narrative, as we stuck with Todorov's narrative theory in our trailer. We only showed the equilibrium and the disequilibrium, which is very big in horror. There's always going to be a disequilibrium, otherwise there's nothing that's going to happen. It's going to be boring as hell. No one's going to care. We had the binary oppositions, as we had good versus bad. So we had the good, which was the nun, bad, which was the devil. Pretty simple, pretty obvious. that was the main kind of plot to the story, so yeah. There's also the convention of a supernatural haunting of an individual, and also the innocent girl is a huge thing. So we have that convention in our horror trailer. Some of the conventions that we did subvert were that usually horror trailers are not in narrative order, but we decided to keep ours in narrative order just because we had quite a complicated storyline and we wanted to make it as simple for the audience as possible. So that was what we changed, and we subverted it because of that. Because usually horror trailers, it's easy to grasp the concept, but with our one, because it was so difficult and switched around, it was very hard to understand the concept of the film, so we had to keep it in narrative order. We also subverted props character types because we only really had one main character, and we had a few other characters, minor characters, in our narrative, but they're not so much. They actually provide anything for the adventure that she goes on against the villain, which is the demon / devil that is possessing all of her friends. Our film was not a hybrid, so we're subverting from the convention of hybrid horrors, because we weren't doing hybrid horror. Another convention that we subverted was the use of weapons in our narrative. Because it was a supernatural film and storyline, we didn't really need any weapons, as much as I really, really would have enjoyed that. Yeah. So on to the third part of the video, the conventions of the trailers, posters and magazines that we used for our trailer, poster and magazine. Yeah. First up, the Insidious 2 poster with this kind of ray of light in the centre of a dark room. We wanted to definitely keep that in our poster. We saw that and we thought that's a really good idea, and it just looked really, really good and inviting. You want to know what's going on. You want to know what's happening. Why is that? What's going on? I don't know. Is the baby evil? Is the thing that possesses the baby evil? We don't know these things. That's why it's very interesting, because there's like one focus in the middle of the poster. So we kind of took that away from that and we're like, cool, we'll use that technique. Also in The Devil Inside, in the poster, there is the cross, which is what we use as our title for our poster, Devil's Note. We wanted to keep the religious imagery throughout our trailer, poster and magazine, so we kept the T as the cross. Why is it so rainy? Please stop, you're so loud. The Conjuring poster was also a big influence on our trailer actually. The title sequences in our trailer are very similar to the Conjuring colours and scratches. We originally had some scratches on our poster around the nun, but we thought that was a bit too much because it kind of distracted away from the one ray of light which we took away from the Insidious 2 poster. Also in The Omen, there is the title and the poster are very similar to ours, as we have the crucifix again. It's very, because our narrative is very religious, we kind of wanted to look more at the supernatural trailers as opposed to the slasher films, because it was more conventional to go with that rather than to go with the other genre, because there are many different genres within the horror genre. So we decided we had to stick with the one that we were going with. As you can see in lots of magazines, there is either the main protagonist or the evil character as the front cover. Because we didn't really have one evil character throughout our trailer, we decided that we needed to stick with our main protagonist, and she was our main character for our magazine, therefore, because otherwise it would have been too confusing having her friends who are possessed throughout on the magazine cover. Because it didn't make any sense, because the evil spreads rather than stays with one person. So we felt like we needed to have our protagonist to make sure that everyone knew the one face that was linked to our trailer. In our trailer we had a lot of running scenes throughout the woods, which you can see in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead and The Blair Witch Project. It's very conventional to have a woods and forest setting throughout a horror trailer or throughout horror in general, and so we decided we needed that to get that kind of horror feel, because otherwise it would have been inside a set, like a domestic setting the entire time. We needed some kind of isolated setting, which is a huge convention in horror. We also implied that there was a shower scene. As there was blood coming underneath the door, the storyline follows that the blood is running from a girl's bath, which is coming underneath the door, which is very conventional, as there are lots of kind of shower scenes, for example in Psycho and for example in Carrie. It's very kind of conventional to have a bathroom scene within a horror film, and so we decided to kind of imply that within the trailer but not completely point it out for the audience to see. Also within the Carrie trailer there is a part where the doorknob is shaking like really like loads, like this. So we decided that we wanted to have that, but in the end, as I've said before, we didn't use our shots of the doorknob for various reasons, such as it didn't look right and it didn't fit in the trailer anymore. But we did want to have that in there, and it's in our narrative, so that counts, right? In the Insidious 2 trailer, there is a jump at the end to scare the audience, catch them off guard, and that's what you see a lot of in trailers. When you watch a horror trailer, you're always expecting something to jump out at you at the end, so we definitely wanted to keep that element in our horror trailer. So we had the red eyes staring into the camera to kind of feel like it's breaking the fourth wall, and it's trying to get to the audience and trying to scare them out, and scare them into watching into the film. So yeah, so we decided to have it breaking the fourth wall so it would scare the audience, put them in the situation that our main character is in, and scare the living bejesus out of them. We also had a pentagram formation within our trailer. It's in the film Five Girls where they have to exorcise a person, and so we decided that we wanted to do that because the pentagram is often used in horror to show an exorcism, so we decided to keep that in ours. The two main movie magazines are Empire and Total Film. We decided to stick with Empire because it just looked better, and the red colour on it looked amazing. I think it looked really good in the end. Our final outcome looks great. It works with our colour scheme, which is what you usually see in lots of different films. For example, The Conjuring, Insidious 2, those posters and the trailers as well have the red, white and black happening in them, so we decided that we wanted to do that as well, and that's how we got our colour scheme. I think that's all I have to say, so thank you for watching the video. Come back soon, and if not, then I'll find you. Bye!